Thank you so much for coming to the Hebel Theater this afternoon. It's a joint event today of Berlinale Hommage, together with the Deutsche Kinemathek, the Museum for Film and Television, and Berlinale Talents. Please welcome the director, Dr. Rainer Rothe, head of Deutsche Kinemathek.
Thank you very much. We're very happy to be here once again in the cooperation with the Berlinale Talents, and we are honored to be the organization or the ones who organize the homage, because you know this is the only prize the festival director decides. The other prizes are decisions of the jury, but this time and every time he's the one who decides who gets the Lifetime Achievement Award. And please welcome now on stage the moderator, the host of this evening, Jüngeren and Ballhaus.
This is overwhelming. Good evening. It's been just a couple of weeks ago, and my feeling that the Berlinale is very young. I see myself standing at the poolside of a filmmaker in the Grunewald, a glass of Coke in my left hand, a motor driving in the other hand, and I look across the pool. All of a sudden, I see a guy who's coming in with a little mustache, very fancily styled, and a velvet brown jacket with a scarf. And I turn to the person beside me and I say, "Who's that? Who's that man?" And she says, "You mean that good-looking man?" That's Michael Ballhaus. And I realize something is happening to this party and something is happening to the situation. Because, you know, a small kid falls into the pool and struggles with the water, cannot swim, somebody has to pick him out. And the Ballhaus guy has precisely the same good reason for staying outside and not jumping into the pool, because he's got a glass and he's got the scarf and I've got my motor like on. So some actor has to dive and, you know, save the poor kid. And he's not touched by that. It was not his kid, it was not Florian or Sebastian, must have been another kid. Ballhaus looks at the scene like 180 degrees pan. You know? And you could sense there was this friendliness and this diplomatic lightness of this man that has made him famous on so many film sets. And here we are, and I should talk with Michael Ballhaus about his life and his achievement. And I say there's nothing easier than that. You know, I have my briefcase. I have a list. This is not the awards. It's a role model, because you can roll it. So these are just the films. And don't let it fool you. The marks on it don't mean that I haven't seen the other ones. Not at all. It's a lot of films. If we would devote like a minute to each film, we'd be over time. Yeah. We have to focus here. And another thing is, for the sake of Feng Shui, Berlinale Feng Shui, this should stand between us. And if you touch it, you'll know what it is. It's your first camera.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the one I...
Yeah, I remember that.
That was one of the first things you did, right? When you were fleeing Berlin as a kid because it was bombed by the Allies, you were going to Coburg.
Yeah.
And you had this wonderful family of mother was actress, father was actress. So this place means a lot to you.
Yes, it does, because my mother was in this theater on stage when she was young. And it was always impressive to hear what she played on stage, and I watched her sometimes when I was little, and I admired her a lot. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman. She was running this theater until the age of 92, and that was amazing. She was an amazing person.
So you had this creative community, and you found yourself a castle. Now everybody will think it's sort of a Disney castle because we're talking film here, but it was theater, and it was like a rundown castle that you rented for a small price, your family, and you had your creative community there. Like it was a place where you all had breakfast together and all had lunch together and lots of rehearsals. And this is where this thing comes into play.
Yes, I started taking pictures with a small aqua box for 10 marks. And I looked at it and said, oh, this is not bad. Maybe we should buy a big camera that you can take the pictures that we need for distribution, you know, for showing. And I said, okay, sure, no problem. And then I got this roller, and I started really taking pictures from the plays. And not only from the play for sure, also from, you know, young actresses and stuff, you know. It was very nice. And young actors. Yeah, you sit there on a big table, and there are like 12 to 15 people every time, and they talk all the time, and you listen to them. And it's growing up in a huge family, and that's something different than growing up in a regular family. And that was for me something wonderful, because it helped me later to communicate better with more people. So with my crew and stuff like that, because I became a person that was used to talk to people and listen to people.
And the camera helped. The camera helped.
The camera was good to take nice pictures.
Yeah. And then came D-Day, the decision-making day in your life when you coincidentally went to Munich and ran into this film set because your parents knew Max von Ophüls. And you ran into this film set, you know, with a cinematographer by the name of Christian Matras.
Christian Matras, the name I will never forget, even when I'm really bad with names, but this name meant a lot to me. And I was watching Christian Matras and Max Ophüls working together. And it was so fascinating for me, because for me it was the combination of theater and taking pictures, and all of a sudden the pictures started moving. So I thought, this is what I want to do. And it was absolutely clear that I couldn't do anything else but that. And then I watched them for like 2 weeks in Munich at the Bavaria, and it was clear I wanted to become a cinematographer.
You also discovered there's an international language of some sort when...
Yes, because the gaffer didn't speak a word of French, and Christian Matras didn't speak a word of German. So, but they communicated in an easy way together, and I thought, this is great, this is international, and you know, could work in every country that you want to do.
There's also a very well-known fact about Ophuls. He always worked track and dolly. And there was a track and dolly scene that you witnessed. And the kicker was that the tracks were in frame. So the tracks had to be hidden. And how did they do that?
It was a very long tracking shot, and it wasn't meant to be that long, but Max said always, I need a little more track, I need like 5 meters more track. And then the DP said, yes, but then we see the track, and that is no good. And we all understand that. And then he said, okay, I have an idea. And he called his grip, and then they took a carpet and put it over the track, and while the camera was pulling back, the carpet slowly came over the track so that you couldn't see them. So it was solved. It was very good.
And you saw the camera moving, right? It wasn't, it wasn't on sticks. It was moving all the way. Because I heard, like years later, you realize how many people complain about the long tracking shots of Ophuls. Just to name an example, Coppola said how much he hated that he had to learn that and study that, these long shots that, track through a whole party, and all you see is the face and destiny in the face, decision-making in the face, and it takes for ages. But then again, these are really beautiful shots, I think. I mean...
yes, they were really wonderful shots. And what I admired, and I always wanted to copy that when he was working in smaller, like in a small cabinet, for instance, there was a scene in a small, like, wardrobe or something. And then what he did, he was not using the whole frame, which was a cinemascope for sure. Then he just moved the frame together, and it was all of a sudden it was a square on the stage, on the screen, and left and right was just black. And I always loved that. But when you come out of a small place and then go to this huge set of where the circus scene take place, then it's a very different feeling from going from small to large. And if it's ever large, then it's not, it's not the same.
You guys must have guessed that this is Lola Montes in 1950, I can't recall, but in the 50s in Munich,
yeah,
when he came back.
Yes, and it was, unfortunately, it was very expensive, the movie, and it was not a big hit. They recut it a couple of times, but then later they discovered what a wonderful film that was, and then it got restored, and now there's a very good copy of it. They made it in Switzerland, and now you can see it also. It's also on digital, so you can really watch this movie, and it's fantastic. It has great, great scenes, totally unusual scenes. He has shot like scenes in a coach, and he did the same thing, that he covered it left and right, and it was just inside the coach, and black left and right.
Great. So the decision was made. You were to be a cinematographer, right. And the first thing you did was you went to a cinematographer, because at that point there was no film academy, no Ludwigsburg or anything. So you went to Mr. Ashley and asked directly. Well, you could learn that.
I don't remember his name, but he was one of the best DPs in Germany.
Yeah.
What, do you remember his name?
Ashley.
Ashley, Helmut Ashley, sure, yes. Now I remember his name. He was very good. And he said, listen, what you should do, you should study photography first. And then you learn about the emulsion, and you learn about all these things. And you learn starting to frame right and all that. And I went to a very good photographer in Würzburg, in Franconia. And yeah, and because I had Abitur, I don't know how to call that in English, Abitur, I only had to learn it for like 2 years instead of 3. And my boss, the photographer, know that I had taken pictures before. So on my first day, he sent me mit a roller to church to take pictures of the bride and the groom. That was fun. And in a way, it stayed like that. So I was never working hard or sweeping the floor on this job.
Never underestimate photography here. Very important. So, next thing we know is something happens. You end up at the Südwestfunk Baden-Baden. Yeah, with electronic cameras. You know these pump cameras? They look like some war game. Huge pumps. Yeah. You know, and you work your way up through a lot of TV plays and a lot of theater and TV, which was a very good part of TV in those days.
Oh yeah, that great directors for that. And it happened because my wife Helga, she got a job in Karlsruhe. And so I moved with her to Karlsruhe. And then there was a friend of my father's knew that they were looking for somebody, looking for young DPs, young cameramen. And then introduced myself, and I got the job for like little money to move these big mothers of cameras.
But the thing is, you worked with very good directors. I saw on the list, and this list too, there are many good directors who dealt with it.
Excellent stage directors, wonderful. I mean, all the big names in these days came all there and directed these TV plays, so to speak. And we even did we did live with like 3 cameras, and it was like opening night or so. It was like, we all were like nervous like crazy, but we made it without big mistakes. And then we celebrated and got all drunk.
It's a great tradition in America too, that they had a lot of film directors who came from live plays, because the TV stations couldn't get the copyrights to air a theater if it wasn't live. So it took a lot of fantasy for the directors to do a real, a stage thing on TV. And a lot of Schlesinger and Frankenheimer and all these guys are that generation who had to invest a lot of fantasy in theater work. So you're in very good company here. And the next thing that happens is Germany starts shaking. Like there's a lot knocking on the door. There was this Deutsche Welle of new German cinema. There was the declaration of Oberhausen. Although Oberhausen was a little bit late for Oberhausen, because the only one who had his film ready by then was Jürgen Poland. He was the first one. He had like Brot der frühen Jahre, if I recall it right, the first book of Heinrich Böll. He had done that in '59 or something like that, and Oberhausen was later. And the whole Oberhausen guys didn't have their stuff ready by then. Did that affect you in any way, that you noticed that there was a big movement going on?
Yes, it was. And we went like every year we went to Oberhausen to watch the new movies, the new German cinema. And that was exciting. I mean, great directors, well known at this time. As I don't know any names anymore, but they were really wonderful guys. You know, the guy who did Die Brücke?
Yeah, Vicky.
Bernhard Vicky. Bernhard Vicky was a great director. He was showing his movie in Oberhausen, and we were all excited. He came also to Baden-Baden to direct a play in the studio.
Yeah, smart guy,
yeah.
Mr. Vicky. I was going to say that this whole thing, Oberhausen, was about Oper's Kino is dead. Right. It meant we don't want to see in great lengths you know, nature films and Heidi's on some allem, you know. We want real stuff. We want the real stuff. Now all of a sudden there was a new generation of filmmakers who took seriously, who put their money where their mouth was, and who also got involved in politics and went straight to Bonn and talked to the politicians. And what we have here, all of this, has been achieved by this generation of filmmakers, by the Autoren filmmakers. And so, Katja, don't schimpf about them, they're great. So, this is like the freedom we have, the leeway we have has a lot to do with this generation of filmmakers. Right. Now it's a couple of years past that. Students are revolting in Berlin. 67, 68, you decide, at some point you decide to go to Berlin to teach.
Right. But before came Fassbinder was one of these guys who was leading in that group of new filmmakers. And he was one of the best at that time. He directed he wrote it and directed it himself, and I think it was groundbreaking what he did in those days.
Which film impressed you in his when you were working with him?
One was called Love is Colder Than Death.
Yeah.
And that was a great movie.
And that impressed you for what? For the way he was shooting it, or for the book, or what fascinated you?
It was for the story, and also for the way he shot it, because he didn't fool around with like the old days with lots of close-ups and stuff. No, he just did it that you can understand the story, and you could see bodies and all. And it was a different way of shooting, and that interested me a lot in those days.
Then you got in contact with him. You were filming something else, but there was this young actor by the name of Uli Lommel, who phoned you one day. You had worked with him, he had worked with Fassbinder. All of a sudden you're in Ireland with your students, there's this phone call.
Yeah, there was this phone call. And he said, okay, Michael, you have to be in Spain in 3 days, and you gotta bring equipment with you and all that. And I did it, and I made it, and then I met this guy, and he looked at me, and he was very unfriendly because he wanted another DP than me. So he was looking at me and thought, what's this guy doing here?
He called you a Fernsehheini.
Yeah, he called me a television stupid guy. And I thought, you know, this is gonna not last long, so I never unpacked my luggage, so I left it as it was in the hotel room. Yeah, that was the beginning. And there was one funny story. We were looking at a landscape, and it was very beautiful there in Almeria in Spain. And I talked to him and I said, I think we have to sell this great view here. And he looked at me and said, what do you want to sell here? So he was very decisive about bad language, and you know, he was writing a lot and so. That sounds better in German, you know. Was wollen Sie verkaufen, Herr Ballhaus?
You always said Sie to each other. There was like a natural distance from the beginning.
Yeah, he was the only one who said Sie to me, and the other guys were all saying you. So,
and then we slide into the funny Fassbinder game, which is sort of a competition-like thing that he always challenged you with things that normally are not, cannot be done, right? He said, I want this, I want that, and you have to react on that.
Right, and he always tried to give me shots that were really hard to do, like from a terrace, from a balcony, coming down with the camera and then moving along with a long tracking shot and things like that. And he always was hoping that I say, oh, this is too hard, I can't do that. But I never said that. And after a while he found out that, you know, I might have been stupid, but I wasn't too bad. So.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden there comes this interesting project which you still rate as one of the two big Fassbinder projects, which is called, what is it called? Martha.
Oh, that one. Oh, that one.
Martha.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great project, really. And I love that script. And what I liked the most about it was the way he casted it. You know, it was a story about a guy who was really a madman who tortured his wife. And he gave the part to Karl-Heinz Böhm. And Karl-Heinz Böhm was one of the most lovely guys and sweet and all. And the woman was
Margit Carstensen.
Margit Carstensen. And she was a woman who had like her own, you know, ideas and power and all that. And this couple was something very strange to pick people who are like opposite. They are really, the only feeling about the people was so different. And it was, we call that gegen den Typ besetzt. It was exactly the opposite of what you normally would would normally pick as an actor for this part. Yeah, and then came an interesting situation. We were shooting in Rome, and he said to me, now we have these two people who will become an interesting part, an interesting couple in this movie, Martha. And I want the audience to feel right now that this something will happen to them. So what would you do with that? And because it was not a straight floor, it was like going down a little. I said, maybe we should go around them. And he said, why not all the way around? I said, there's a problem. If you lay tracks, they have to be leveled. So if you can make your actor walk over a track on the end, then we can do it. And he said, okay, I'll take care of that. So we laid the track and we shot it, and it really looked great. And on the end of the shot, you see Karl-Heinz Böhm doing one big step over the track.
He's not the only one in film history. I know other
that was really funny. But you have to really watch careful.
But he also topped it by saying to the actors that they themselves should turn too.
Right. They turned around themselves also, and I was zooming in, so I was close on them, and they turned around. So it was really a fascinating shot, and it was sure that you could remember it. When you saw it, you know, oh, what was that? There's something happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's breathtaking.
And that was, yeah, that was the first time I did 360. But I have to admit, and I do it here for the first time, that there was one piece, 1 meter of track was missing because we only had so little tracks.
That never happened again to you.
We couldn't go all the way around. So, but we stopped at that point, and it was almost a 360.
355 degrees. Not bad. And so you had your trademark all of a sudden.
It became a trademark, funny enough. I don't know why, because it's a very complicated shot. It's not easy to do because you see everything, you see every light, you see the people, you see everything in it. and that's why people didn't like to do it so much. But more and more, my colleagues used it, and when they used it over and over, then I started not using it anymore.
You shot that in, I think, inside an embassy yard in Rome, this first circular, and all the gang had to be behind the camera at all times.
Right.
So while the camera was moving, the whole gang behind it had to move with it. And I imagine that cleaning lady looking outside a window on the 4th floor, looking down at this crazy tribe down there. It must have been something.
Yeah, it was a funny thing. But normally, you know, not a lot of people walk around with that because it's noisy and it distracts the actors. So most of the people were hiding behind bushes and stuff. So, but yeah, you have to be careful because you see everything.
Chris, could we please see that shot?
Yes.
Which means we have to make it dark? Yes.
Taxi!
That was it.
And it ends, of course, with Margaret Carstensen behind bars. I mean, that's very symbolical.
Yeah.
That's the way the film goes on.
Yeah, it was a great script and a wonderful movie. I liked it very much. Also, we decided, I mean, basically he decided it, but I went with it. He said, let's try to do this movie with only one lens. We shot it in 16, and you know, the regular lens for 16 millimeter, when you shot in 16, is the 16 millimeter lens. So we shot the whole movie with one lens, and that was 16. And it wasn't easy because, you know, sometimes you need like a wider lens because the rooms are small and all that. But he insisted that we never change it, and we never changed it. So it was a very great idea because he didn't want the angle to be different. Sometimes you can have like a wide angle or a long lens, and he wanted to also be the same objective look at the people, that you always can see everything that is important. He was not bad, this guy. He was not easy to work with, but he was very talented.
There was a very natural distance between you and the Fassbinder crew because you had your family, you went home every night. The others partied and tried substances and other things, and you went home at that time. And the second deadly sin that you committed was you had a life outside the Fassbinder circle. You shot other films too. That was not received so well.
Yes, he hated that when I worked with other directors because he was a mean motherfucker. Sorry. but he was still jealous when I worked with other guy. So, and I worked with a couple of good ones. I worked with Peter Stein, a great, theater director in Berlin. And but I always had my family, and that was very strong. And I loved it very much to have my family, because this was, I only know the German word for it, not the English word. Es war eine Schlangengrube to be in this circle, because we were all fighting about getting the next part and stuff like that. So it was not fun.
For a while, though, you had a pretty good understanding with him in regards to professional matters, because you had found your sound, right? You had your way of communicating, and you had your competition thing of always provoking the impossible, and it went well for a while. And then there was a movie that you pointed out in the whole list too, that you said was important, and that was Maria Braun.
Yes, I liked that script very much. It wasn't written by him. Normally he was writing his script himself, but this was written by a different, it was written by, do you remember the name?
No.
No, but
I can look it up though.
It was a really great script, and we loved it, and we decided to shoot it in a small town in Bavaria, and we were all there already, and he said, okay, you do the camera, and Helga, my wife, does the production design for it. So we worked, and then we waited always that he would finally come. And then Fengler was the producer, and he always called and said, okay, I'll be there the next day, but never came. And then one day Fengler said, okay, I'll direct it myself. So the next day at night, he was standing in front of the hotel and ringing out everybody and was there. And then he came and said to me, he was writing on this great television series, Berlin Alexanderplatz. And he came to me and said, I can tell you about every shot on this script on Berlin Alexanderplatz, but what the fuck are we doing here? And then we had to explain him, and then he looked around and he changed a couple of locations, had great ideas, like always. And then we started shooting this movie. And but again, there was one moment where we were in trouble with this guy.
Which was that?
The moment was that Helga had to hire somebody who helped her, like with things that he didn't know about, like making plans and stuff like that. So he hired a guy, and he was young and handsome, and Fassbinder had a crush on him. So he said, okay, Helga, you don't have to be on the set anymore. This guy is running the set now. And there was like a moment where we thought, okay, maybe we should leave this movie. And we discussed it and then decided, no, we should be professional and stay on it. Also, this guy couldn't have done it by himself because he had no clue how to be a production designer. And Helga was very good at that, actually. So, yeah, that was this guy.
Well, but after that you made another movie, which made him furious again, and when you were prepping for, or location scouting for Alexanderplatz,
yeah,
you ran into the same thing again, like it was problematic.
Yeah, and I had shot another movie without him, like with another director, actually in Prague. And yeah, we met on location scout, and his assistant, Harry Beer, was there, and he talked to Harry and said, tell this DP what we wanted to do here. And he said, okay. So he's funny again, but maybe that will change. So it went the whole day and tell this GP what we wanted to do. And by the end of the day I thought, I have a funny feeling. And the next day it went on like that again. And then I went home to Helga and said, listen, I can't do it anymore. It's too hard. I mean, imagine working with this guy who was heavy on drugs and used it a lot on Marriage with Maria Brown. To work with this guy for 9 months, I can't do it anymore. And then I called the TV station who produced it and told him that, and they said, no, Ballhaus, you can't do that. We know that you already shot sometimes with Fassbinder, was not on a set, and it worked. So if there's something that's happening, we know that you could cover up for him. I said, no, sorry, it doesn't work anymore. So that was it. And
16 films later. This is 16 films and one documentary that you shot about his movie number 7? Was it number 7?
It was number 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was happy not to do it because all of a sudden I was available. And the next thing that happened is that my good friend Peter Lilienthal called me and said, I'm shooting in New York, and would you come with us? I said, absolutely, yes. And we shot a movie that was produced by a German producer, Fittinghoff?
Joachim Fittinghoff.
Joachim Fittinghoff. And we shot it for very little money, for sure, like always. And it was my first production in America, and we had an American crew, which was wonderful, great experience for me. And the star in it was Joe Pesci, and he was a pretty weird guy, as we know. And one guy, one day there were a couple of big guys standing in front of the door and said, where's your permit that you can shoot here? And they looked around and said, we don't have a permit. And then you can shoot it here. And these were guys from the local truck
union, the Teamsters.
The Teamsters. And so there was a big problem. So we went to Joe and said, Joe, what can we do? And he said, okay, let me make a phone call. His guy, his mafia guy, was in prison, and he called him up and said, okay, could you help us? We have a problem here. And like 2 hours later, there was another guy. He was as big as the other guys, with 2 guns left and right. And he was protecting us against his Teamsters. That was my first experience in the States, how easy it can be if you have a good friend who is powerful. And right now, in prison. Yeah, out of this one came an offer for my next movie, which was then without Germans, shown only Americans. And I must say I was a little nervous about it because I didn't know this guy. I met him once and we talked a little, but I didn't know if it's really, if we really know each other and can work together. And I couldn't move my right arm for a while. It's funny. And then we started, and I had a great American crew, so I used the same guys that I had on this German film. And after like 1 or 2 weeks, all of a sudden I realized that it's no difference. It's great. They feel the same way, and they react the same way. And it was for me like an opening door. I thought, my God, it's so great. I can work in this country. They are not that different than the Germans. You know, they talk a little different, but but you can really deal with them. And we had a great time, and the movie was called Baby It's You. That was my first poor American movie without any German help.
Miraculously, your reel was shown via Joe Pesci to Marty, and he liked it. He was in preparations for The Last Temptation,
right,
if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And but you were all ready to do it, but the project fell through for a while because of financing, I think, or what was it?
No, it wasn't financing. It's a funny story, actually. Marty know my work already. He is a maniac, Marty. He watches a movie every night. So he saw Fassbinder films for sure, and no. But there was a movie that I shot, a low-budget movie, After Baby It's You. I forgot the name, but he was looking at that movie because he was looking for an actor for Last Temptation. And there was a shot which I liked a lot. So the couple who was like belonging together in a way, they were very different. He was poor and she was rich. And they had a great dance together. The first time that they were dancing. And they came closer and closer, and it was really like, yeah, it was like a little bit like lovemaking. And I went round and then like 8 times. And Marty saw that. And he said, who has done that? And they said, Michael Ballhaus. Oh yeah, I know, he's worked for Fassbinder. Okay, and then he called me up one night and offered me to do Last Temptation.
Yeah, it's amazing. Then The Last Temptation was stalled for some reason.
Right, it was, yeah, it was cancelled because the moral majority in America, they said if this movie comes out, the movie theaters will burn in this country. And so the studio didn't like that a lot, so they cancelled it. And then it took like 5 years until Marty finally got the money together. The first budget, the first place where they wanted to shoot it was Israel. And the budget was 20 million. And then they cancelled it, and then it took 5 years for Marty to get the budget together. And then we had, instead of 20 millions, we had 7 millions. And so everybody was taking only a part of their salary. And we did it out of love for Marty. And it was the right thing to do that way, because, you know, Jesus was a poor guy, and we shot it as a poor movie, and really worked really well. It worked really well. And it was much better than do it in Israel with lots of money and lots of extras and all that.
It also had the little advantage that you could shoot another movie in between, which makes a whole lot of difference to your whole working relationship with Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
That was After Hours.
After Hours, and After Hours was something that he hasn't done before. It was a low-budget movie. We only had 4 million and only 40 nights to shoot it in New York at night. And he had always made his great shot list. He had great ideas about shots and made a shot list. And then the producer came to him and said, Marty, you have like 15 shots every night. Can you do that? And he said, talk to Michael about it. And then I came to him and said, Marty, I did it with Fassbinder, but can you do it? And he said, let's try it together. And we did it together. I will never forget this first day. He had a camper, like these directors always have. Later I had also one. And by the time he arrived at the camper, who was a little outside, the PA came and said, Mr. Scorsese, we're ready. And from then on, he never went back to his trailer. And we did the movie in 40 nights. We stayed in the budget, and he got every shot that he wanted. And that was for him a very new experience. And I only could do it because I had this experience with Fassbinder, and I was really very, what's the right word?
Economic.
Not economic, no, I was daring. So I shot the movie wide open. That means there's no depth of field at all, you know? When you take pictures, you know what it means to have no depth of field. So the focus pillar was sweating all over.
I still pity him. I still pity him because they were shooting with street light and pushed material, but there was no lights whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, like, he was always lighting two sides of the set simultaneously and removed all the cars and trucks. So you had free hand to do everything what you wanted to do. I mean, it's an amazing picture. And there's this wonderful photograph where you all sit and stare with the camera at $100 bill lying in the street, because the story is that this wonderful actor goes to his meeting with this beautiful girl, and he's in a cab, and there's this hell driver of a cab, and he only has $100, you know, and this $100 bill goes out the window and is gone forever. But before it's gone, you do your thing with a $100 bill. It flies, it does all sorts of stuff. And the photograph I'm referring to here is when the whole crew sits on the floor somewhere in Soho and stares at this banknote, you know, with a huge television camera.
To find this $100.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was really nice. No, that was a wonderful experience, and the thing was that an American DP wouldn't have done it because he would never dare to do that. Like shoot with so little equipment and shoot it wide open and things like that. So, and also I was always well prepared. I had a great crew and always knew exactly the next shot and prepared it ahead. So it was wonderful. And for him, it was a total new experience that you can do movies like that. On the movie before, he shot like five shots a day. And
that was Raging Bull with Michael Chapman.
No, it wasn't Raging Bull, no.
Wasn't it Raging Bull?
No, it was not Raging
Something
Bull.
where somebody lived forever.
Yes, that's true. But it was a comedy. King of Comedy, right. Thank you, great.
There you go.
King of Comedy. And it was a comedy and it wasn't fun. So it wasn't funny. So it was a flop and it was expensive. It was 20 million. So he didn't work for a couple of years and always tried to get Last Temptation financed, which took forever. So for him it was something new. And he said, you gave me a new feeling about movie making, what you can do. And that was like a really, from then on, a very strong relationship, and it was, for me, it was heaven to work with him.
This was, if I'm not totally mistaken, the point where you said we could move to New York, right? That was when you really moved over to New York and had an apartment there?
Yeah. And for me it was great. On the next movie, which was The Color of Money, we had more money this time and more time, but the sad part was that his new wife, he married like 5 times, and that was, I think, number 3. She was very pretty. She had more money, but she was sitting on it. But okay, it was good, it was okay, and I loved the movie, and I loved to work with Marty for sure. And I liked this movie a lot, The Color of Money, because it did something which was new and different. I wanted to be that the camera, the lens is really at the same height like the balls, you know? And but that wasn't that easy because it was always over. So I had to use...
You had to tilt the table, for instance, in some shots, right?
No, I had to use...
low angle prism.
Low angle prism, thank you. Great, wonderful. You must be a cameraman, right? A low angle prism. So the camera was really on the floor of the felt. And yeah, and so it was, the balls came right into the lens. And that was the great thing about this movie to do it that way. But you could track on the green felt, and
I think there's one more thing that is beautiful about it is Paul Newman. It has Paul Newman.
Yeah, and I love Paul Newman. He was so wonderful. I adored him. I adored him so much because he was so friendly. And he talked to my guys, said, okay, guys, if you need some help, just tell me, I'll help you with all I can. And he did it. And no, he was wonderful. He was the first time I heard this expression from him was, it's a funny thing, aging is not for sissies. He said that a couple of times, aging is not for sissies. And he really lived that way. He said, okay, yes, I know it's not for sissies, but I am not a sissy, so I want to do the right thing to get through that. And he was my role model for getting older. And I liked him, loved him very much.
You shot another movie with him and his wife, I think, a couple of years later.
Yes, he was directing it.
Yeah.
And he was a wonderful director. Sometimes my ideas about shots were for him a little too wild. So when I wanted to go round and round, he said, this is, he had a funny expression for that. He goes, that's artsy-fartsy. So I couldn't do very artsy-fartsy shots.
But that was also, I mean, already part of his theater project that he was planning. He had, with his wife, Joan Woodward, he had this theater in the Midwest somewhere.
Right. And yeah, then he directed it, and besides the fact that I couldn't do artsy-fartsy, it was a wonderful experience. No, he was wonderful as a director, and his wife was playing the lead in it.
Yeah.
What was the title again?
I can look it up.
It's
a all here.
No, it's a wonderful glass menagerie. Great. Who was that? Was it Cherry?
Of course.
Great. Glass menagerie. Yeah.
And what came after this? Was there directly this wonderful streak of good films with Scorsese, or what happened next after that?
What happened next? After that, I think a movie with Jim Brooks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did a movie with Jim Brooks, who was director who was a great writer. He was very rich because he had written famous, how do you call it? Famous, you have for years the same story.
What?
TV series, right? And he was very rich, but he didn't. The problem with him was that he had no visual ideas. He was great with actors. He shot like every scene 20 times from 12 different angles, and it was very boring. But he was so rich that he could do whatever he wanted. He was his own producer, and it was hard. But he was so he was so powerful that he really could do what he wanted. So I remember when he gave me the script, it was 150 pages long, and normally a script in the States is like 120 is like the limit. And I said, what do you think to do, how to shorten it? And he said, okay, you can read it and tell me what I should shorten. And I read it, and then he came to him and said, okay, why is that scene important for you? And then he explained for every scene, he explained why it's important for the connection, for the other scenes and stuff like that. So, with other words, he didn't cut a word. He shot the movie, it was, the first cut was 3 hours long. We had to throw away like 1.5 hours. Was less in the garbage can. But because he was so powerful, he could do whatever he wanted.
we have lost 2 films in a row here in our history, and one of which I think we need mentioning, and that is your collaboration with Prince on the Futuring Moon.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is like the longest shot I can imagine. You started off with communicating over, around 6 corners with him, and at one point he simply called you into his limousine, which was standing in the rain, and had a conference with you, right?
Yeah, he had hired a young, not too young woman who shot like one of his music videos.
The clips, yeah.
Yeah, and he thought he was right, she was right for it, because he could just push her around and tell her what to do. But she didn't do what he told her, and then that went on for like 2 weeks, and he was only going to his limousine, never came out before or later. And then I got a call from him, and he said, I think you are as unhappy as I am with this lady who was shooting. Should we try to do it together? I said, oh, yes, okay, fine by me. So I become like co-director, and got also credit for that. And then we worked together, and it was from that moment on, it was fun every day. He didn't go back to his limousine. He was running around, having fun, and we did it, and we had really a really great time in France at the Croisette, like parties every Saturday, and he was like buying a whole bar out for the crew and all.
This is what we wanted to hear. Mr. Bernard. The other thing we missed is you met Schlendorf on the street in New York and decided to do a film together with John Malkovich, and that was like a minute decision, right? At a traffic light, that you decided to do that film together.
Which
Dustin Hoffman.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, I have it on my list. Death of a Salesman.
Yes, Death of a Salesman.
And that's theater within film. And you could open your whole toolbox of Schloss so-and-so.
Yeah.
And, get out the raw and do it.
Yeah. And the director was Volker Schlendorf.
Yeah.
Volker Schlendorf was the director. It was funny, we met on 5th Avenue, run into it. Also, we know each other for a long time before that. And he said, I'm doing this play, and I'm a little scared because it's not only that the actor has done this 100 times, and it's hard to direct him because he's very, very temperamental and things like that. And I said, oh, it's a wonderful play because I saw it like 50 times. My father played the lead in it for a time. Said, no, that's not true. I said, yes, that's true. Okay, could you do it together? And I said, yes, we could. And then we decided to do it together. And so this way I met the leading guy, and we became close friends.
And it was a challenging thing to
Yes.
do this house with the backstage area and all that. It was a challenging film.
Yeah, and it was
with a lot of different light.
And Dustin Hoffman was the lead in it. And it was very hard to stage it for the director because they had like played it 100. I think they played it 100 times.
Yeah.
And so then I made a suggestion that maybe what if I just take the camera on the shoulder and walk around with them, and then I became. I mean, I saw the play like 5 times, so I know basically what they were doing on stage. So and I did that, and they loved it and said, "Great, you are not the camera, you are one of an actor on the stage, on the yeah." And that made them happy, and it made the director happy, and so on.
Long story short, it gave you a friendship to Dustin Hoffman that later saved your life when you were in trouble.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
at one point he had a real problem, and Dustin went to the hospital and really sucked it to him, right?
Yeah. It was a pretty bad story. I had a deal with a company to shoot a movie for a director that I hadn't worked with before. And I flew with him from LA to New York, and he was talking, and I couldn't get a word in between. I said, I can't work with this guy, it's impossible. But I didn't know how to get out of it. And then I got really sick. Really sick. And so I get Magendurchbruch. What's the word for that? Pardon me?
Your stomach.
Stomach bleeding. So I was walking up one morning and blood was coming out of my mouth. So I had to go to the hospital, and the hospital was a very bad one. It was the next one was to our house in LA. And he was, Dustin was with Wolfgang Petersen in the editing room, and he heard about that, and he jumped in his car and came to this hospital, and he was really making a big Megillah out of this. He said, if something happened to this guy, you go to prison. And then he got really scared because he was a powerful, famous actor. And he really immediately he brought like 2 other great people in, doctors from other hospitals who were like good. This was like a bad hospital. But you know, and then one night I was again bleeding, and they had to operate me at night. And the guy was doing that was not so good. But I'll never forget, he came at night to the hospital and he was holding my hand and said, okay, watch the lights, maybe you can use it one day when you go And that really, I think, believe that he saved my life, and there was, right, since we're still friends, it was a wonderful relationship with him.
That was during the filming of Outbreak. That's a little later on our list here. And we mustn't miss, this one thing, the broadcast news. You got nominated for the broadcast news, right? For Best Camera. That was a very good film with Bill Hurt and who was the girl? I have to look it up myself. She was a girl, because that was really nice. Base Holly Hunter. Yeah. She was here too, by the way, a couple of years ago. Yeah. And then finally, now that we're talking about it, The Last Temptation of Christ was filmed.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah. After 5 years, we had the money together, and we shot it not in Israel as was planned before for 20 million. We shot it. That I mentioned that already. So we did it, and it was great. It was wonderful. It was poor, like Jesus was poor and we were poor, but it was right for the movie. We had the right sense. It was all poor, and it became really a movie that moved. It moved with all of us in a way. And I always felt that we had some help from up there, because I remember we were looking for a location. And we couldn't find one because the location that they had found before was in snow. And you know, it's not so great to shoot Jesus on a cross when it's snowing. It doesn't work that way. So, and so in the last minute, on that evening, I was with the first AD, Joe, really driving around in a car. And there was like a little street going up the street. I said, maybe let's try to get up this little street here and try to maybe look at it. And it was a perfect location for this crucifixion. It was just a miracle. So we had some miracles happening on this one, and it was just wonderful. And we felt it was sometimes you need some help.
And then along comes a film which I love very much, that's Working Girl.
Oh yes.
Working Girl has a dream opening of a Manhattan shot, like helicopters around the Statue of Liberty, and catching the island, the ferry from Ellis Island goes on board the ferry, and there's Melanie Griffith with this explosion of an 80s hairdo. Her girlfriend, what a wonderful scene. And then you step from the ferry and on into the story. And there's like, you took really good care of her. I think it was a very difficult film for her.
Yeah, it was difficult for her, but it was wonderful. It was my first collaboration with Mike Nichols. And I never forget, it was, he called me up in Morocco when I was shooting with Marty. He was calling me from New York in Morocco, and he talked in English. No, he talked in German to me. He said, "I would like to hire you for a movie that I'm shooting in German." And I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "I'm Mike Nichols." I said, "Oh yeah, I know your work." And he spoke German. He was Jewish and lived in Germany, and then went to the States and had a great career. And this was his first time I worked with him, and we had a so wonderful relationship because he was maybe what the ideas for shots. He was a little less of fantasy, and I had a lot of fantasy, and so when he rehearsed the scene with the actors, I was there with my little video camera and walked around and found the shots and then showed it to him, and he said, "Okay, great, let's do it." And then we shot it the way I had imagined it, how it should work, and we had really wonderful actors. And we had a great time. We went to the opera together, and we went to concerts together. And he was a little different than Marty, With Marty, we would never go to the opera or to a concert. But
not even the Italian opera?
Pardon me?
Not even the Italian opera? As a friend of the Italian opera, did he go there?
No, it was not an Italian opera.
No, I mean for Marty.
For Marty, no, Marty would never go to an opera, no. I don't think so that Marty would do that. But yeah, it was wonderful to work with him, and I did, unfortunately, only 3 movies with him. But Working Girl was my first one, and it became really a very good movie. I did one mistake. There was one complicated shot, and it was very little room on this location, and the actor was
Harrison Ford.
And Harrison Ford has a kind of big nose, and I had to photograph him because I was with the camera, on the wall, and then we couldn't move the bed further away, so I shot him with like 18mm lens. And so his nose looked even a little longer. So he kind of was not thrilled with that, for sure.
But he's got a deal with you.
But when I met him the next time, when we shot with Wolfgang Peterson, we shot
Air Force One.
So we said hello to each other. I said, "Look, Michael, this time never photo would be less than 85." And 85 is like a long lens, so.
Half my age, he said, right? Half my age. No, not more millimeters than half my age.
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
That sounds like a deal.
Yeah, he said, never use a lens.
Yeah, but Working Girl was in many aspects a great movie. I mean, it was right on the money. Far as the moment in which that was shot, the career moment of women and this styling and everything. It was a perfect movie.
Yeah.
And I was so happy that this all came together in one movie. It was a super thing.
Yeah, it was, and we were all very happy. And Sherry always told me I should not say that what Mike once mentioned to a journalist. She said that is Dane, you shouldn't say that. But I have to do it because it was so great. He said, working with Michael is being in heaven, only you have to die for it. Big compliment. Sorry, Sherry. Forgive me.
Okay, so we're at a very, very important film now, and that is Goodfellas.
Yes.
And a problematic film for you in many aspects, but a wonderful film for the camera. A very brutal film, and I think it was nerve-wracking to shoot this, right?
Yes, it was, because it was so much violence, and I'm not crazy about violence. And Marty loved it, and he wanted also more blood,
more brain.
And more brain, and something like that. So it was just terrible. I mean, there was a shot where they shot a black guy, and there was like a bed behind him, and all the blood that came out of this, pistol that would shoot the blood on the bed. And then they discussed about shouldn't be in that, in that shot a little more brain, and discussing being a little more brain in it. I just throw up. It was terrible.
And you came home every night and said, I had to shoot how a guy gets shot and the brain sticks to the wall. I mean, that's not an easy thing. But Goodfellas is by far the best example for the authenticity that Scorsese produces when he's about violence, and how he underlines that with music and with the rhythm of the picture. And also there is a very, very remarkable scene that does the trick for all Steadicam scenes forever. That is the so-called Copacabana scene.
Yeah.
It starts with money changing hands. It's 3 minutes long, and you have to tell me what you did there.
Yeah, that was really a wonderful shot, because what the great about this shot was that it explained something that you could not tell with a dialogue. You could not tell it with words. This guy he had met a girl that he liked very much, and he wanted to really show off. He wanted to show what kind of great guy he is. So he tipped like everybody, and they were walking through, not to the regular entrance, but to a perfect, like a personal entrance through a dark hallway. And there was a guy standing there, making out with a girl, and he gave this guy a $20 bill. And then we went with the camera through the kitchen, and there were like lots of things happening there. And then into the Copacabana, and a Metro D came immediately to him and greeted him like a big guy, a big shot. And then the table was flying through the air, came to the thing. And his all was, Marty asked me, do you think we could do that? And I never said no to Marty, so I tried really hard to make it work, but it was almost impossible, because it was very narrow, and in these days you couldn't have remote control for the camera, so the focus puller was just walking right behind the Steadicam operator. And the Steadicam operator, and now I remember the name, was Larry McConkie, yes. And he was the best guy in town. I'm so proud that I remember his name. And I tried it a couple of times with my little video camera, if it's possible to do it. But it was really hard, because going through the kitchen, I mean, the walkway between the wall and this was like 1 meter. and there were guys working there. And you know, when you touch the Steadicam, then it moves away and you can start from scratch. So we need to get that and come through all these different like edges where you have to go really slow around to make it, to get through. And yeah, we tried a couple times with a video camera, and then I thought, okay, maybe we can do it. And I told Marty, and he was very happy to do it. And then we started doing it. And the problem was for me that he gave this $20 bill and his keys to the car to a guy on the street, and it was day. And I know we would like shoot a long time, but once it would go dark, I haven't lit the street, and I know if we go darker, then you know, then I couldn't shoot anymore. Then I had to relight the street, and that would have taken probably 2 hours to do that. So I was, you know, afraid that it would get dark, but I got lucky again. Like most of the times in my life, it was just the light was just right, the light. So we could see outside and then go through this dark tunnel. And we did like 8 takes. And finally, we had a very good one. And there was a guy who was like a funny comedian. And now he will tell me his name.
I would have to look it up.
His name was Cherry?
Jüngeren.
Henny Jüngeren. And Henny Jüngeren went on stage, and he had said this line 100 times. What was the line again?
I think something about his wife.
Oh yeah,
you are my wife or something.
Okay, his wife said to him, I want to go somewhere where I've never been before. And he said, what about the kitchen? That was so, but he came on stage and forgot the line to say, and we were like, it was terrible for all of us, because it was a very good take. Most of the time it's when something happened, it's most of the time it's the best take. That is the rule in this business.
I have to add to the complication of the take that there was a lot of distraction. Like you had to hide that you were going in circles in the kitchen. And when Chris now plays that scene, you should look at the fact that you're walking in circles, and there's always some waiter crossing or some cook crossing to distract you from where you're going. And in the meantime, the entrance had to be rebuilt as an entrance to the club, right? And one of the cooks, by the way, is the real guy from the Goodfellas.
Oh no,
yeah. Yeah. So, Chris, could you show us the scene?
What me fascinated the most was this is a...
See you later. Thanks.
What are you doing? You're leaving your car?
Watch this apartment. It's easier to leave it at the garage and wait. It's like quicker that way. You know what I mean? Huh? I like going this way. Better than waiting in line. Yeah. to see you. Good to see you. Hi, how are you? Anthony, right this way. Great, thanks. Just let me know. I know you will.
So it was the wrong line that I told you, but you know the expression "take my wife" has different meanings. So okay, so where are we now?
Where are we now? We're past Goodfellas, and you know, you could have done another scene. Like your circular in that film is the one where I think Ray Liotta beats up his neighbor, right? It's the most brutal scene I ever saw that you filmed. It's very plain and simple. He goes over and he knocks the shit out of the guy.
Yeah, but we don't have that here, right?
No.
Okay, then we shouldn't. Then we should.
Well, that was a wise choice.
Yeah,
Sure, it was a wise choice.
Yeah. So what's next?
I'm working on the list here. We have now a quiz show. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We have now a very, very nice film. And that is Postcards from the Edge.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, complicated but nice.
Yeah, maybe we should skip that one because I don't like it much.
Okay.
We should probably do What About
Bob?
What About Bob is nice, yes.
What about Bob? But that was also a very complicated film.
It was complicated, but it was very funny. I liked it very much. But I thought we should go to
The Baker Boys. The Baker Boys with the most amazing circular I've ever seen. You had great fun shooting them because you had good understanding with the director, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny relationship because I loved the script a lot. You know, when my agent got it, he told me, you shouldn't do that movie because it's a very unexperienced director and also they have little money. And I said, no, whatever it is, I want to shoot it. I love this script, it's wonderful. So I shot it and it was really great. And I prepared myself to give this director a long speech. So I talked to him for like half an hour or a little more and explained exactly how I would do it. And then on the end he said, okay Michael, then do it that way. So I did it myself. I did like everything myself. I had to invent the shots. I should talk to the actors about where to sit or where to stand, where to move. And I was kind of a little more than just a DP on it. It was like more, yeah, a second, kind of second director. But you know, my job in the States was called director of photography, so I was a little bit director on that one. And but he had no problem with that at all, and the actors neither. So it worked great. And I talked to Michelle in the beginning. I'd seen a couple of her movies that she did before, and she always looked so flat in a way, and it never came out. So I said, Michelle, we have to do something about your the way you are lit and all that. So we should do some tests, and then you look at it, and then we do it that way. So we did that, and I lit it a little harder than she was normally lit. And it was right for the part that she did. And then she liked it very much, and she got better and better in the part. And I think this scene that when I read the script the first time, I thought, this is the shot that I would like to do. I was going around her when she was singing on the piano. The director loved it. Then we worked on it hard. We prepared it for a long time. You know, the piano had to be on a practical, like 1 meter practical, that she is above the people, that everybody could see her. Then we laid the tracks on top of this practical, and then the piano, and then just went around 360, almost 360. The editor cut the last part away, and I hated it for that.
It's always so nice. The last 5 degrees that they always cheat you on. But you know, it has other records too. You had to look for a hotel room that didn't exist because you needed stars on a balcony, I think, for the love scene. And the stars were very important, so you had to invent the stars. I will never explain from the toolbox of Michael Ballhaus how he did it, but it's interesting. And the other thing is, there's a drunk as a skunk scene with Jeff Bridges, and he was really drunk. And it worked anyways, which surprises me because it normally never works when you're drunk, you can't play drunk. But it worked this time around with his brother.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a marvelous film.
Yeah. No, I love that movie a lot, not only because I did a lot more than normally on it. No, it was wonderful. And then we rehearsed it a couple of times with Michelle on stage, and we had like somebody who was working with her on her moves and all. And after all these rehearsals, finally came the day when we shot it. And yeah, and then we went round and round, and we were singing, making whoopee. And that was a highlight of her career and a highlight of the movie. And she liked it very much.
We have
talking about the stars. The stars. That was funny, but Mike Nichols saw the movie, and he said, "How did you do the stars?" The stars. And I said, "Yeah, I explained it to him. We had a black net in front of this balcony, and I put just little lights that you use for Christmas decoration. I put little lights on this black net, and it looked like stars. It was surprisingly very.
You were used to Christmas decoration lights. You used that in cars all the time.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like in the sporty 70s, you could see Michael Ballhaus shooting car scenes hanging out of cars on motorcycle straps, and the car lit inside with
Christmas lights.
You know, that was one of the easiest tricks. I could tell you things like at one point I visited Geisendorf. He was shooting Zauberberg, and the cameraman had just changed, and Michael was taken over, you know, and he had to use all of his diplomacy to get it right. And the funny thing on the set was there were actors of 4 languages in one table scene. Now, can you imagine, like Rod Steiger talking in broad American, and Marie-France Pézier answering in French, and then Christoph Eichhorn speaking German, and a Russian was there too, I think. Yeah. That must have been real complicated. I was only on the set for a couple of days, but I didn't envy you for this, you know, for this challenge.
But I liked it very much with working with the director. He was very, very.
Geisendorfer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool guy.
He was very nice, and he liked it how I did it. I was maybe a little faster than the other guy, and
I won't tell you who the other guy was.
No, don't mention his name. No. But yeah, it was good, and it was very long. We shot like, what, 12 or 14 weeks on that one. Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, you know, when in crisis, call Michael. This is all I can recommend, you know, to any film producer sitting here. This is the life insurance. This is the completion bond of a lot of films. So we come to the age of innocence.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah. Now you tell me, because I have no notion. There is no bigger difference in the world than between Goodfellas and Age of Innocence as far as the visual language is concerned. And how did you do that?
That was one of my most beloved pictures, because I like the story so much. I'm just crazy about these unhappy love stories. I don't know why. I'm just a little crazy about that. And so we had great actors, wonderful actors, a great director, and we had enough money. We had great sets. We had the most amazing production designer, Dante Ferretti, who was doing sets that were like a dream. And we were shooting at wonderful places. It was rich, and it had great locations and wonderful scenes. And so I loved every moment shooting it, and I loved every moment when it was done. And it was a great movie. Also, we shot like 2 weeks in Paris, which is not bad either. So it was very, very happy shoot.
But you cheated, Michael. You cheated. You cheated a lighthouse by the beach. You moved it, right? Daniel Day-Lewis stands by the beach and looks at a lighthouse.
Oh yeah. Now I remember. Yes, now I remember. That you call it cheated, but it was not. It was before.
You pre-photoshopped.
Yeah. It was before CGI. And we just had to have a couple of elements in one shot that were not there. So we did like a matte painting and combined like 3 different things. Like one boat was going by, there was so I don't know. It was a big bridge and all that. That was the only thing that was there was a bridge. And the rest was all in Photoshop later. But it looked very good. It looked very good.
The whole film looked very good. Winona Ryder and Michelle Pfeiffer and Daniel Day-Lewis' head was quite a thing to see.
It was wonderful. It was really wonderful.
So nobody knew so far, before this Berlinale, is how specialized you were in unhappy love stories. This is something that amazes me. Then what comes next? And then came a lot of films, like The Quiz Show, which is a very nice film. Outbreak, we already discussed, with this very wild circular, where you had to rig all the cable equipment to the ceiling for the circular. And then comes Sleepers. And Sleepers is a film that even today cheats me totally, because Sleepers is a wonderful film, although I don't like the message so much. You know, this revenge thing. Did you feel it when you shot it, or?
I had a problem with the second part of this movie, because it takes place when these guys are young. They're like 12 years old, right, or something like that. 12.
That's right.
And that part was really great, because they were wonderful young actors, you know, in that age, and they did a great job. And the story was a very tough story, because they were treated badly by these guys and tortured and stuff and used. And So, but then, you know, when it was like 20 years later, there were grown-up actors, and I never could imagine which guy was, you know, the grown-up guy who was here when he was little. And so, but that part was not so great. Also, the revenge part, you're right, was not so good, because they're trying to kill everybody who treated them badly in the past, and they killed like 3 people. So that part I didn't like either. But at the beginning, the first part of it was I liked very much. It was good. Some very good things, and I like to work with Barry Levinson. He was other colleagues of mine told me you shouldn't shoot with him because Barry is very bad with DPs. You know, he never lets you do anything. He was always pushing you, and you never had time to light a set and all that. And I thought, okay, let's see what we can do. And I worked with him, and I was always well prepared. And it was great shooting with him, and he never pushed me and nothing, because, you know, I was used to be fast.
The other thing is, in preparation for this talk, I saw literally every statement that any cameraman has ever made on film. And there was one guy who says, talent is like 90% hard work and 10% luck. In this film, you had luck. You have this, when the guys get misused by their by these policemen, the camera moves back on tracks or not on tracks, I don't know, and you know the scene gets smaller and smaller, and you feel the pain of these young guys, you know, who are being mistreated, obviously. And you went back and didn't hear the cut, so you went back all the way, and the scene went smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's one of the most amazing effects in that film, and it has been copied ever since. In so many movies, you should really get money for it. You know? It's a coincidence because you didn't hear the word cut from
Yeah, it was fun. You know, I didn't hear it, and I liked it very much, and I saw it as it got smaller and smaller. And it was kind of miraculously. It was almost black on the end. No, sometimes you have to have luck.
You got to have luck, right? Right.
I had a lot of luck in my life, that's true. But I was so happy that they had so many people around me that helped me. I mean, my crew was wonderful. My family was great. My Helga was really keeping my back clear. I couldn't do that. I didn't need to do anything. She was handling everything. She was with the kids, took care of the kids, and she took care of me, and she was always with me on the sets and always helped me. And so it was a lot of her power and her, giving me the time to really do my job without her being involved in it. And that was one of the reasons I could do so many things.
I was very impressed at one point that you always said we, like it was always a we.
Yes.
When you decided to do a film or not, or when you were on set, you never sat with the others and took your lunch. You always went back to your hierbei, go to do yoga or whatever.
Yeah, and most of the time, not most of the time, but many times we worked, all the family worked together. I mean, Florian was, I worked with Florian together for 10 years. And then first he was putting focus, later then he was my operator. And Sebastian was worked as a first AD on it, so sometimes the whole family was working on it. Besides, Helga took care of all of us. And that was really wonderful.
And I think even a lot of camera work, like in Gangs of New York, he shot certain sequences that were too bloody for you, if I'm
Yeah.
He did the bloody jobs. Because you don't care for that blood, do you?
No, I don't. No, I don't. But Marty was crazy about it. Marty always wanted more blood, more blood. I remember when we shot the last scene in which movie was it when you got shot on the end?
Oh, that's Departed, I guess.
Oh, The Departed, yes. Oh yeah, Departed. The end of it, you know, the elevator opens and Leonardo got shot. And there was a lot of blood already on the back of the elevator. But Marty said, no, it's not enough, more blood, I want more blood the next time. I said, Marty, but look, it's really enough. No, it's not enough, so he wanted more blood. So, yeah, sometimes it was a little tough. But, you know, it was still acceptable.
So let's focus on the last picnic point of this. That's the Air Force One thing. You know, here's Peterson, who studied film from you in Berlin. He was one of the students in Berlin. You meet him again in LA, and you do that together. Air Force One. I can remember the designs and the sketches in his office. He was really excited about it. And you had a gas doing that, right? It must have been fun because of a lot of things. The actors were nice and intense, and it's always fun to work with Peterson.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what you want to hear from me.
Okay, I can say that. The Air Force One requires, of course, a circular. Now, how do you do a circular in an airplane? And you did that.
Oh, you were talking about that one. Oh yeah, now I know. Yeah.
That was cool.
That was cool, and that was fun because Harrison had to do a lot of work on that. Harrison had to move around with the camera to get it really around, because I was just going along the wall with the back on my back. It wasn't doing myself, it was the Steadicam guy again. But we really did it. We went around him, and on the end we went once around. So we did 360 on the airplane. But we couldn't have done it without Harrison. Harrison made it possible. So he was walking around with us.
It was very good. It was very good. How is it for you to reconnect with Peterson after such a long while? You did Outbreak with him. I mean, that must have been like your old buddies. You've known each other for so many years.
Yeah, no, I liked him very much as a director, very much, because he was so nice with the crew and with all the actors. The actors, even the actors who were known for being difficult, loved to work with him because he was always friendly. He had always respect. But he was not on his knees in front of his big actors. No, it was on the same level with them. And so they liked him very much. He was proud and open and friendly, and he loved to do his job. So he came every morning, he came on the set and said, listen guys, we're doing a wonderful movie here, and we should be all happy that we could do this great work.
Yeah, he feels it's
a very good atmosphere on the set. The best I probably ever had with Wolfgang.
I had a lot of fun with this one line when he cuts off the guy and says, get off my plane. I liked it because, I mean, you could have said anything, but get off my plane is the right line. So, shall we switch to Gangs of New York?
Yeah.
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 Okay, the big one. Let's have the big one now.
The big one, now the big one. And this was really my biggest movie. And we shot forever on this one. We shot like 148 days. And I lived in Rome for 9 months. And it was just amazing because everything was built in Cinecittà at this incredible genius art director, production designer. He put a whole little town place on the stage, and also a harbor with a ship in it. So it was fantastic because we had, you know, these buildings were inside, were prepped for the inside locations, and outside we had built all this, you know, this little town. It's a huge place, this town place, buildings and all that. So it was fantastic. And we had great actors, wonderful actors. Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, what's the name of her?
Cameron Diaz. Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz, thank you. Cameron Diaz. And she was wonderful. She was great. She didn't have a big part, but she was very, very good and had a great relationship with Leonardo. And
no chance at the Oscars with this one, right?
That was the problem, because we always thought this is so big and so good and so has so great actors. Most of them were from England. Great group of wonderful British actors. Yeah, and we thought deep in our heart, we thought maybe he was nominated for an Oscar and I was nominated. We thought maybe this time it's going to happen. The problem with this was that the American people hated this movie because it was showing America in a time where America was corrupt, it was prostitution, it was corruption, and it was cheating and all that, and they didn't like it. And that because it just happened, this terrible accident, 9/11 in New York. So they just hated the movie. And I think still until today, they do not accept this movie in a way. And this is really a great, great movie. They've shown it after the award on tomorrow night at the Berlinale Palace. And I liked it very, very much. But for them it was, for the Americans it was too political. And then all the Oscars went to Chicago.
Which has been forgotten ever since.
Yeah, and it was just, you know, it was amusing, it was nice music and all that, but it was, for us, it was very depressing. I remember that Marty was sitting in front of me and I saw this guy getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And when it was over, he went up and said to me, I will never be in this building again. Next year, he was there again.
Speaking of which, you know, something happened. We have talked now for 2 hours. We have not even touched 10% of the films that you've made, but this is about all the time there is here. We're going to chase us off stage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that it's over because it was great talking to you.